Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
I'm Jose.
We saw Home Again.
Yes.
And what is Home Again about?
Okay, so Home Again is a women's film. It's really kind of a film about Reese Witherspoon's transformation. So at the very beginning of the film, she's separated, living in her father's house. She's got 2 children, and she's starting her life again, basically. And one night at a party, she meets this young man. He turns out to be a filmmaker. They move into her guest cottage.
The man has 2 friends.
The man has 2 friends. So they're a filmmaking team. One is the lead actor, one is the lead screenwriter, and the other one is the director-producer. Anyway, what happens is that, by the end of the film, the ex-husband comes back into the picture. It doesn't work out. They end up deciding to divorce, and basically what Reese Witherspoon ends up is with an extended family around her, which is made up of the 3 filmmakers, including the young man she had the affair with, and her ex-husband. But really, kind of, you're shown her alone in her bed, very happy, just with her children. So it's kind of like a fantasy of what life could be, for women over 40. And it's kind of like a really, for me, upsetting fantasy. First of all, it's a very white fantasy. It's a really rich fantasy. They live in Beverly Hills. She's the daughter of an award-winning filmmaker. Her mother is Candice Bergen. So, it's kind of unappealing in those things. Though actually those things in other women's films I sometimes love because, I don't know, they seem glamorous and aspirational and so on. In this film, it just seemed smug. What did you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree, except that I didn't even think that much. Like, I spent the whole film cringing heavily, but I think it's clearly a film. I'm loath to be too harsh on it because it's clearly a film that I'm not even close to the target market.
Right.
Except that I'm white and would like a nice life.
Yes, well, I suppose I am part of the target market.
And I suppose I would like to have sex with the 40-year-old Reese Witherspoon. That's where I come from.
You're the 28-year-old
yeah, exactly.
who thinks Reese Witherspoon's hot. Well, she is,
and she is.
And she's very attractive.
She rocks those mom jeans.
And she carries the film. She's really good. And Candice Bergen is really good. So it's got, the direction of actors is uneven. Basically, those people who know how to take care of themselves, Martin Sheen, Candice Bergen, and Reese Witherspoon do great. The others are terrible, And actually,
the daughter's okay. The older daughter's okay.
No, the kids are good, actually. The younger daughter is very good as well, which, for a child performer. So maybe she's got a gift directing children, the director.
Or just a good casting director.
Or just a good casting director. Anyway, I hated this film, actually. I really disliked it. It was one of those films where everything seemed badly done, right? So you have these montages of partying, of drinking tequila shots or whatever, right? And you could see them coming a mile away, and they're done so unimaginatively. And it's like, this director has just plonked the camera, without any kind of imagination or with any kind of pursuit of subtlety or extra meaning or anything. It's almost like, where can you get the actors in the frame? Plonk. Right, I thought it was like really terribly directed. I really hated it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no imagination or creativity to the direction. It looks like one of these films looks. It's very heavily saturated and colourful. There's no imagination in any of the kind of design. It's not expressive, really,
No.
the way it's shot or
and edited. It's particularly upsetting because Reese Witherspoon in the film is meant to be an interior decorator. Right, and you can tell that her home is very pretty. But actually, it's almost like there's been no thought given to how movies cinematically can convey beauty and meaning through composition or framing or use of color or, any of the normal techniques of mise en scène are basically kind of bypassed in this film. It really is like, medium shot, close up, it's just terrible and terribly unimaginative.
And it doesn't even have the excuse of saying, like a lot of these films, a lot of these American comedies are heavy on improv. So it's like, well, we couldn't film this, that, and the other in quite such a detailed way because we had to make sure we were covering all the improv. But in this, they know what they're filming. Yeah. Everything's been written down. There's no improvisation. So there's no excuse for any of that. It's just lazy and creative.
And maybe I'm being a bit mean-spirited of this, because when I saw the poster, I saw Nancy Meyers, right? And I thought, I like Nancy Meyer films, actually. You know, I mean, they are actually those types of, you know, romantic comedies and women's films that I do, in fact, like. And then, actually, you realize that it's not a Nancy Meyer film. It's really, like, you know, directed by her daughter, right? So, on top of the ineptness, there's, you know, the issue of nepotism, which actually...
It's produced by Nancy Meyers.
Yes. But, you know, nepotism never bothers me if they're good. Like, you know, I don't care that Jane Fonda, you know, is Henry Fonda's daughter. She's a great actress. But actually, you know, for some reason, it bothered me. And I suppose the real reason why was just through having seen Nancy Meyer's name in the poster. If I hadn't seen it, you know, that issue wouldn't have been raised and it wouldn't have bothered me. You know, but it did bother me to see kind of something so inept channeled through or funneled through what looks like a case of nepotism, actually. That said...
I'm not sure that's the biggest... I think that might be rather like when we saw the Borg Mackerel the other day, and I went in with different expectations because I'd seen this one headline that said it was great.
Yes.
And then discovered that everyone else actually thought it was kind of middling, which is what I thought. But I ended up having a bad time because I thought, everyone thinks this is great.
Yes.
Because I'd seen one thing. It's a little bit like that, I think.
Yes.
You've just seen this one. So you've seen Nancy
You're
Meyers.
already in bulldog mode, wanting to bite everyone.
Exactly. Like, you've seen the name Nancy Meyers, and it's given you a slightly distorted view.
I know, but
do you think that's what the poster was doing?
Whilst I think it was misselling the film, right? Because when you do see that name in
was this the poster that you're talking about?
I think it might have been.
It says Nancy Meyers and Haley Meyers Shire in equal size lettering.
Well,
Nancy
okay.
Meyers
is above the title. So, you know, that's clearly what I saw. Anyway, you know, there were moments where we were watching the film, and I think 80% of the time, you're just cringing. Yeah, you're cringing that you're seeing something so bad that actually you can see what's coming a mile away. You know, that, like, the characters are so predictable. I mean, you know, and actually it's kind of very interesting because Reese Witherspoon in Little White Lies on television did something much more interesting and deep and complex about kind of, you know, a middle-aged, upper middle class women living with divorce than this even touches on. And, you know, and she's a great comedian, I think, Reese Witherspoon. I mean, she's wonderful in the Legally Blonde films. I love her in Election. You know, Sweet Home Alabama is really enjoyable. And so she knows how to play kind of this character. And really, she brings things into the film that aren't there. And to be like almost, what's the word when, you know, somebody creates a wall around you?
Isolated?
Well, to be stopped from, you know, achieving what you could be through inept direction, you know, is like upsetting, really. And it is incredibly inept.
Yeah. Well, it's not like laughably inept. I think it's essentially...
It's laughably inept on that budget.
Well, what is the budget?
Well, it's a low budget by, you
$12 million.
Reese Witherspoon standards. But, you know,
it's not laughably inept. It's just... Like it's not making kind of these heinous mistakes that are obvious to absolutely everyone. It's just... It's so by the numbers. So run of the mill. There's absolutely no... Like, there's no reason to have had, you know, this person direct it as opposed to that person direct it. It's just like, take this script and take these actors and just put them on screen for me, please.
I mean, when you have, you know...
it's doing everything with the soundtrack. Everything's got a bit of guitar, that kind of upbeat, modern thing. And then when it gets sad, there's a little bit of sad guitar instead, and maybe some piano. It's doing all of that. Like, actually, that's a kind of film that maybe it's because I don't watch these types of films very much. I haven't seen a film like that in such a long time where it's like... really everything is scored completely in that way.
Well, it's trying, I think, to give a West Coast vibe,
you
know, an LA vibe, because you hear Carole King and people like that, I think, on the soundtrack. But I want to go back to the question of ineptness. Because I think even first-time directors, like let's say in the classical Hollywood period, if you're doing a film with MGM, there are all these departments behind you, right? So, kind of you have these great cameramen and these great set designers, and so the level of ineptness, it's only going to be at a certain level because you're protected in all of these ways. This director is protected in all of these ways, by having her family, being 30 years experience in producing, writing, and directing movies.
But that's why I think the film isn't as. That's why I think the film isn't worse.
Well, that's what I mean. That so that's why I'm calling it inept, because actually with that level of protection to be this mediocre is really quite shocking.
I think that I spent a lot of time noticing that. So, for instance, the three boys who move into the house very often are framed in a kind of in just a 3-person setup, and it's like they're very nicely framed and they're right there, but there's nothing artistic about it. There's nothing beautiful about it. It's just that
there's nothing expressive about it.
Nothing expressive about it. They're just being shot that way. But I would notice that they're being nicely spaced out and framed in a way that's like it's. I tell you what, it's not inept. It's basic. There's no creativity. Everything is being done just about okay, in a way that like nothing is completely wrong with the film, the way it's directed, but nothing is so great.
God, what do you mean by completely wrong?
What I mean is like the camera isn't sort of pointing at the ceiling.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. We agree that that's your definition of inept. Well, it's not that inept.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Close.
What I'm getting at is like it didn't look notably bad. Like it didn't look like, wait a minute, there's something really wrong with this direction. But there is nothing to it. It's TV movie.
You give a film graduate with a modicum of talent, not very much talent, that budget, and I think almost any one of them would have done a better job.
Yeah, probably.
So,
although they may have done a worse job on other things, like a film graduate will know where to put a camera down to look interesting, but I bet they won't be able to work with a fucking actor.
Well,
at least most of them.
If you're given Reese Witherspoons and Charlie Sheen and Candice Bergen, you don't have to know much how to work with an actor. Michael Sheen.
Charlie Sheen would have been good.
they'll teach you.
Yeah, there's a bit of that.
So, it's a film. There were some times when we did end up cringing through 80% of the film when the young boy who is like going after her. It's like he's a complete blank. It's almost like he doesn't know what to do with himself.
And it's actually written very badly.
It's written very badly.
It's written by the director.
But it's directed worse because, it's like there's nothing there. There's nothing blank. He's not given even interesting bits of business to make like the blandness of his character not be so obvious. I mean, it's just blank.
Yeah, it is.
So... now, that said, we did laugh a few times. It does have a bit of a satire on Hollywood.
We do have I say to you afterwards, as much as I dislike the film, I think a lot of it is... I can put down a lot of it to, rather than it being a terrible movie, it's just not my cup of tea. I think there are people to whom this film... And you said this was a very patronising thing to say, which it might be, but I think that like this is... I'm not the target market for this, and maybe it worked really well for some people.
But I don't think it's a question of target market also, because I do think...
So
there's two things, right? First of all, I do think that there's a real bias towards against women's films and against things like romantic comedies and so on. I accept that, and I think it's very foolish, on the part of... people who are against these things, because like everything else, there are good ones and there are bad ones, and the question is, kind of how do you distinguish between them? Now, I am a very happy consumer of women's films and of romantic comedies. I like them, and I think they can be as great as anything. So, I am in a way their target market. So, and I just think this is a piece of junk. And actually, this is what straight boys who hate romantic comedies think all romantic comedies are like.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although we were talking a little bit about whether it is a romantic comedy or not, because I think it's in some ways it's posited as one, and the film kind of the film sets up these two groups of characters. You've got the mother and her daughters, and you've got the three filmmakers, and then it's when the boy comes in contact with the girl that the film kind of takes off.
Yes.
So it starts off as it's going to be this romantic comedy, but if it's following that genre through, then they end up together, really. there's a happy kind of which it doesn't do.
Yeah.
It ends up, as you say, with this extended family being generated, and everyone kind of seems happy together. So
Yeah.
it's not quite a romantic comedy.
Well, I'm sure what some people would say it's like a romantic comedy with a twist. The twist being that the woman prefers to be on her own, like Jill Clayburgh.
Yeah, maybe the case too. Which means, in that respect, it means that then it's doing something interesting.
Well, yes,
It's saying the woman's finding happiness not in this young love.
Look, what it's trying to argue is, that it is interesting. Or certainly maybe it's not interesting. Maybe it's just a point of view I share. So, that people can find fulfillment on their own, with an access to a wider community, than a nuclear family provides. That's not an old message, but it's true that we don't see that message in Hollywood films very often. So, let's give the
credit where credit's due.
Credit for that. But it's not much of a twist, and it doesn't compensate for all the cringy moments in the rest of the film.
It's not much of an ending, for one thing. I was saying, although when you think about it in retrospect, there is a kind of closure, and Reese Witherspoon's character has developed in certain ways, and she's kind of taken control of her life by, she's the one who's made the decision to dump the young guy, and she's the one who's made the decision to kick them out, and she's the one who's made the decision to divorce her husband, and she's the one who's made the decision to tell the wealthy person who is treating her like shit in her job to go and screw herself.
I know.
So she's the one who's made all these decisions, and come to this kind of place of happiness by taking control.
But you see, I think there's something just like so.
But what it ends up, despite the fact that she's done all that, actually the film's conclusion, when the credits roll, I thought, is that it? Is that the ending? I thought it needed some more scenes.
Anyway, and even with all that you say, which I agree with, you think, if a rich Beverly Hills housewife, can't do those things, there's no hope for any of us, really. So,
yeah, rich people problems movie.
Yeah, I don't.
It's a bit Judd Apatow, isn't it?
I don't care, So
there's certainly an element of that. What else was I going to say? The three young
Hollywood
men,
element.
Yeah. Despite the fact that I felt in pain for a lot of the film, and I wanted to leave because I'd forgotten my shorts. You see, I brought my bag with me so I can go play football later, and I forgot my shorts, so I need to go back and get them. So I thought, maybe I'll just leave because I'm really not going to be missing anything.
I forced you to stay.
You kind of forced me to stay, and ultimately, I guess I'm glad I finished the film. But
yes, but you had a great need to leave.
But I really
in 5-minute installments for the last hour. So So this generosity of you now.
From the beginning, it was actually when the boy and girl met about 15-20 minutes in, I thought the film picked up, and then for about 10 minutes I was happy, and then it started again.
Yes.
But anyway, what I was getting at was, despite feeling like that all the way through, there were a good 10 times where I laughed, and I heard you laugh too.
Yes.
It has its moments, jokes-wise, but they are just moments.
Yes.
So there's one point in particular where the three guys are having meetings in Hollywood about trying to get this film made, and they're a real gang. They want to stay true to their ideals, and they want to shoot it in black and white and all this stuff. So it's very clear that they're not quite like artistic idealists. They're not these kind of starving artists, but they're
practical people.
They're practical people, but they just want to get their movie made the way they want it. Which actually they're quite respectable people. And then they have a meeting with this producer who's known for horror.
Yes.
And he says, everyone just gives me horror scripts all the time, so I'm really glad to have something that's not horror, where people don't die and there's no zombies. And he says, I'm interested in making 3 types of movies.
Nice.
And he says, movies with strong female characters. And they're like, well, there could be the love interest maybe in this. And he's like, okay, forget women then. Which is a great line. Forget women. Something else, I can't remember. And then he's the third one.
Found footage film.
That's right, a found footage love film. Which is a great idea.
And this is, but who would film it?
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, I don't know, whatever. And then the third one is awards films.
Yes.
Which is great. I just want to make a really, really great film. It's like, okay, let's make that then. And there are these moments where there are these little Hollywood observations which are quite nice and sort of slightly cutting, I guess. But it's not just those moments that are funny. There are moments in the house and so on and so forth. It picks up every now and again. There's a laugh, and it's a genuine laugh, and it really meant it.
Yes.
Where the guy drops his.
See, that's probably what the mom brought in.
A little bit. No, there's a bit when all the three guys are moving in, and actually this was done with cinematography as well, unbelievably, and editing. Although I think actually, if I think it could have been better still. But when the three guys move in, and Reese Witherspoon's made the bed for them and everything, he's like, "Here's the guest house," and the one of them's like taking his jacket off, and some weed drops out, a bag of weed drops out onto the table. There's this one shot which is just a wide shot of the four of them, and the weed's just sitting there right on its own on the table. That's a funny shot because all of a sudden everything just stops and like, oh my god, there's weed on the table. But the shot's gone in an instant, and then they move on. But I laughed because I noticed it, but I don't even think the director noticed it.
Well, you see, that's part of the dilemma of this film. Anyway, I thought it was atrocious. So,
but Reese Witherspoon's very pretty. I was saying to you as well, I don't think. Despite the fact she probably is... How old is Reese Witherspoon? She must be 40.
She must be 40, yeah.
And she's meant to be 40 in the film. She's born in 76, so she's 41.
Yeah.
So she's 40. And the young lad is 27, he's supposed to be. I think they both look kind of 5 years younger than they are. I think it's Hollywood thing where it's like, this guy's 27, but actually he's 22. And this woman's 40, but actually she's 35. Even though she's not. She's just had work done. It's Hollywood 40.
Anyway, it's bad casting because they don't look well together. They don't, you know... So
you can't believe that she would ever go for someone like him. He's a fetus.
Yeah, he's a fetus, and I was going to say he's so insubstantial, but fetus gets more to the point of it.
I did like I like the relationship. There is the three guys are not just an amorphous blob. They also have their own internal kind of drama going on. So there's the thing about how they want to remain as a team. You've got director, writer, actor, but then the writer gets offered a job on his own, rewriting a script, and the actor gets an audition for a TV role. So then there's this drama develops of, are they going to split up? Which again, it's not developed enough. There's something there.
And it's wrong, you see. And again, I think this is part of the experience, because I think if you're Nancy Mayer, trying to pitch a film to a studio with a big budget, and you say, I've got Ryan Gosling with me, I've got the screenplay by this great screenwriter, and Nancy Mayer will direct and produce. You've got a package, right? But if you're three young filmmakers, I have never seen an unknown actor attached to the project. I mean, the team would normally have been the screenwriter, the director, and the producer, or actually maybe a cinematographer.
What about Good Will Hunting?
Well,
that was the two of them, and they said Matt Damon's acting. They did, and it was a success.
Well, it's true.
Happens every now and
again. But, I kind of... it happens every now and then, I suppose. But that's the only incident then I can...
But
I suppose
they don't necessarily have to be...
Stallone did it as well. But they were the driving force behind that film. Whereas actually, here the lead actor, he's not the screenwriter, So,
but there's no suggestion that these guys will be successful. They are kind of taking meetings, but I bet Hollywood takes meetings all the time just to say no. And I think
there's very much a suggestion that they will be successful. I mean, they're already getting. One of them is getting roles, and another one is asked to rewrite.
But in this specific thing of getting this movie made that they're in together, I don't think there's actually a suggestion of that. They are.
I felt that was a misunderstanding of what the industry is like for young people. And I think the only other examples that I could think of, and yours is one of them, the Good Will Hunting one, is where the stars have actually written the screenplay. Then they can leverage it into the parts, right? But actually, in this film, the guy hasn't written the screenplay. He's just an unknown actor who's attached to the team.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
No, I get that, but what I'm getting at is, I really don't think there's a suggestion that in this specific project of getting this film between the three of them made, they will actually be successful. It ends up with the director giving this passionate speech about how to a potential financier, about how it looks like you're going to say no, and I'm not going to waste any time here. And then that might be the speech that in like the longer version of this film gets their movie made. But obviously you don't see, that's kind of where that ends. The thing is, what I'm getting at is, there are probably loads of groups of 3 young filmmakers who failed in Hollywood in the past, and this is just another one.
I know, no, but the film, by having him already writing another screenplay, the screenwriter writing another screenplay, the actor already acting in movies, and you're shown that.
Getting an audition. Yeah.
It's very much indicated that they are very much on their path to success, actually.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I get that, but it's. I'm just talking about this specific thing of this specific movie, which is their thing. The point is that the guy getting this audition, and he does ultimately right at the end. You see him in the role. So the guy getting the audition, the other guy getting the rewrite. It's not about whether they're going to be successful or not in the long term. It's about whether it's going to split them up.
Mm.
That's what the film is getting at, and that's what's not
film. The only thing I liked about it was the relationship between Reese Witherspoon and Candice Bergen. They were kind of the mother-daughter relationship. There were moments where, you know, they were done without dialogue, that it was just really a kind of a sequence of looks that I thought was, you know, both funny and affecting, actually.
When the dad comes back.
Yeah.
And it's this thing of, what's going on? What's going on? But it's all done with the gesture, with the eyes. Yeah.
So I thought that was very good.
I liked the relationship between the screenwriter and the older daughter. There's a very slight kind of mentor thing where, because the girl has to write a play that she has to perform in, and he becomes her cheerleader.
Yes.
And that becomes, it is quite cliche, quite hammy, but the thing of, I'll be standing at the side of the stage when you do it, and I'll be there for you. Yeah. And he just arrives just in time.
Yes.
You know, which is kind of cheeky, but actually I ended up liking that. It made me smile.
Okay, well, so
it's not 100% inept, but it is about 100% free of talent and creativity.
Okay, on that note, we'll end for the week.
Don't see Home again.